Ew. Huh? Oh.
Hey guys, welcome to the Men's Room. I'm your host, Mark Sparks. Now today we have a special treat. We have a PhD in psychology, a certified psychologist, the doctor of dating. I'd like to introduce Dr. Amir George Sabungi. Dr. Amir, how are you, man?
Absolute delight to be here with you. Although I gotta say, I was kind of nervous when you
When I invited you
into the men's room. But I love it. I'm glad to be
Yeah,
here.
everyone always gets a little anxious when they get to the men's room. You're a doctor and you're the doc.
That's right. First of all, I love what I do because I get to sort of, all my other colleagues, the other serious psychologists, they get, when we get together and chat, they're talking about all the boring problems they have to solve all day, and I get to solve pretty exciting problems.
Right.
And actually, I think I get to help guys solve one of the most important problems in life, which is meeting and building a relationship with somebody that's really going to enrich their lives. And if you're in a relationship with the wrong person, it's probably the absolute most miserable part of your life.
Yeah.
But if you can find a high quality person to build a relationship with, it's probably the best part of your life. I think relationships are that important. And dating is the gateway to do it all.
Now that's big because I think a lot of times, when we talk about meeting people, dating, we always focus on the front end, and I really appreciate where you're coming at, that back end, developing the relationship side.
Well, because you got to ask yourself, if we start with the end in mind, what's the ultimate goal?
Right.
Ultimately you want to be happy. So what do you want to get out of this? Let's start with the end in mind. And that's going to dictate who you're going to meet, how you're going to meet them, where you're going to meet them. And there's a new trend in psychology that I'm really excited about, and it's called positive psychology. And basically what it is at the beginning of the new millennium, around 1999, 2000, the president of the American Psychological Association, in his speech, he said, you know what? In the last 100 years, psychology has done a really good job to figure out what makes people miserable. So mental illness, depression, burnout, figuring all this stuff out, the chemistry of the brain, how it malfunctions to create, people with schizophrenia, all that stuff. So he said, you know what we should do for the next 100 years in psychology? We should figure out what makes people happy. And I just thought that was brilliant. So that's a lot of what I focus on in my practice is what makes people happy.
Right.
And this whole concept called resilience, how people bounce back from difficult life circumstances or bounce back from adversity.
Right.
So I'm sitting in my office one day, and so this is my focus in life. I just want to make everybody happy.
Right.
So I'm sitting in my office one day, and this good-looking, tall guy, engineer, owns his own engineering company, smart, athletic, sits down and he says, okay, so here's my problem, doc. I slept with 6 women last year. The average male is going to sleep with maybe 10 women in his whole lifetime.
Right,
So
I was going to say, he's
not so bad.
Yeah.
But he says, no, you don't understand. I actually slept with these women. Like, we'd go out on a date, the date would go well, we'd wind up either at her place or my place, and then invariably, somewhere during the date, she would just say, you know what, can we just cuddle, or maybe some other time, or... So they would actually sleep with no physical contact, no sex, no intimacy, and if this happens once in a year, it's, whatever, it happens.
It's cute.
But 6 times with 6 different women, it's a pattern.
Yeah, there's something.
So I'm sitting there going, I didn't learn anything in my 15 years of university on how to help somebody with this problem. Good looking, athletic, smart, nice enough guy.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, let's figure this out. So this is a rare opportunity for me to learn more from my patient than I'm going to teach my patient. So
Right.
I'm studying everything that's ever been written on the psychology of attraction, the psychology of relationships, the female mind, how it works, how it's constructed differently from the male mind, how women are hardwired to pick up certain cues and all this. And I pretty much dissected this guy's entire life from the minute he gets up in the morning till he goes to work, meets a woman, goes on a date, every single little thing that he does. And where is he going wrong? Where is that switch getting flipped in the woman's mind that, you know what, this guy is just a friend. There's no way that she's going to date him, sleep with him, get into a relationship.
Because there's a definite switch point.
Well, that's what we found out. There's a definite switch where he falls just into just friends hell. So later on, we could talk about why when you hear the let's just be friends speech, it could actually be the best words you've ever heard.
Really?
Because it can actually allow you to embrace that person as a new friend and sort of integrate her into your social network, which is a great way to expand your dating life.
Right, which is another big thing.
It's a huge thing.
Right.
Because I'm a big believer in this concept that I call living the life you love, and building these really great networks of great friends and great people around you is part of that living a life you love.
Right.
But this guy was not living a life he loved at all.
He was not. He was living the cuddle life.
He was living the cuddle life. He was in just friends hell, and he wanted to get out of it. And when he was in high school, he was kind of like a geeky kid, you know, smart, but a little socially awkward, Coke bottle glasses, a little pudgy. But boom, he turned into this like really athletic adult, super smart. But when he looked in the mirror, that's not what he saw.
Right.
He still saw pimply faced, pudgy, rejected 16-year-old.
Right.
But he's this like 35-year-old, super successful, smart guy. And so whenever he enters into an interaction with a woman, he thinks he's 16 years old, and she sees this 35-year-old man, and she's like, well, why is he being so dorky with me? It's that mental attitude that he's bringing into his first interactions with people, whether it's women or colleagues or whatever, that would instantly put him into the just friends zone.
Right.
Something about how he didn't perceive himself according to all his great qualities. All he kept seeing was all the defects. We had to rebuild him from the very first minute. What first impression does he give somebody? What's his posture say about him? His eye contact, the way he shakes hands, the way he engages somebody.
Right.
If he's passionate about his life, how does he transmit that passion? How does he engage enthusiasm and make his mood contagious? In the first few seconds that a woman meets you, she's sampling what a life with you would be like. And if those first few seconds are like great, intense, she feels some kind of authentic connection with a real person who's present and is passionate about his life because he's living a life that he loves, I mean, what's not to be attracted to? There's a couple of really important switches that have to be like flipped right at the very beginning. So is this man a leader?
Okay.
Leadership, number one, non-negotiable. Are you a leader? Are you confident? Number two. Somewhere in there you have to show that you have a sense of humor. So there's something about having a sense of humor that says, wow, this is a guy who's emotionally stable. He doesn't let life rock him up and down. And somewhere in there you also have to show that you're an authentic person, that she's connecting with a real human being. And women will tell you this, you know, I liked you despite all this lines and gimmicks and routines that you used.
Right.
Like, what do you mean despite? I studied real hard to learn all these lines and gimmicks and routines.
Exactly. So you're
she's
saying
like,
the routine stuff it's...
No, she either sees through it and likes you for who you really are, even though you don't realize that, or she sees through it and says, wow, this guy needs all these crutches because there is no authenticity there. Once you get the leadership and confidence and authenticity and sense of humor, what it boils down to is this a man that I can admire? And so if you don't admire yourself, if you haven't taken stock of yourself, written down all the great things you've accomplished in your life and all the reasons why you should be admired, and you are so aware of that, you have a purpose and a sense of direction in your life that you convey instantly in an interaction, if you don't admire that, you can't inspire that admiration. And at the end of the day, attraction has to walk through the door of admiration.
I like that. So then how do you go about getting from being that 16-year-old pimply-faced, chubby little guy to being the attractive man that you need to be?
Well, there's two ways. Start fixing it from the inside out, which takes a long time, but is really powerful in terms of making a personal transformation.
Okay.
Or start from the outside in, which is a lot faster, but it's a little more superficial and it doesn't make the same kind of impact on your life. So most guys will start from the outside in. And I actually, as a psychologist, recommend the outside in because it's...
Really?
Yeah, because if you start from the inside out, it's a long, slow process. You got to go in, open up the little machinery there, the little engine in your mind, figure out how all these images of yourself, how your thoughts are created, how your belief system got created, why you do the things you do, why you believe certain things are right, wrong, or whatever. Right. It's a tough process. It takes a lot of courage to confront yourself.
And a long process.
And it's a long process.
Right.
Very important.
Right.
But let's start from the outside in. What would that look like? Well, first is say, okay, first thing somebody's going to notice about me is the first impression I give them. So how am I going to construct that? What we're going to do is we're going to reach in, figure out who is this amazing man that's living inside you, this man who really is a warrior, who would fight and maybe even die for a cause that he really deeply cares about. Maybe he would even not only die for a noble cause, but also give up his life for somebody that he loves, for the people that are really close and dear to him. So who is that warrior? And we're going to unleash that guy. That's the first thing somebody should see about you. Not the shy, nervous, insecure. You know, we all have flaws, but that shouldn't be the first thing people see about us. What they should see is how much integrity, caring, dedication we have to a purpose in our lives. And that's our inner warrior. So we take that guy out, polish him off, maybe introduce him to you because he's been there all the whole time, but you maybe haven't had a chance to meet him.
Right.
And say, this is the guy that women want to meet. And in those first few seconds, she's like, wow, this is a man with integrity who's got a backbone. He's present. I can feel his masculinity. And I want to find out what makes this guy tick. There's something to admire here. What I found, though, is most men are so afraid of being too masculine that they wear this lead shield around their masculinity because they don't want to offend anybody. And for a woman to feel safe, she doesn't need to feel safe from you. She needs to feel safe with you. Whereas most men are so afraid to offend that they try to make the woman feel safe from them. But by doing that, she's like, well, I don't know if I could really trust this guy. So a quick exercise I have guys do in my workshop is, I ask them, and I get them to do this together, either with women, because I have female dating coaches. I say, okay, if you just met this man and you know nothing about him, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much would you trust this man with your life right now? And if it's a low score, that's a problem, because that's the first impression you're giving people, that they can't trust you.
And that's with no contact. You're talking just turn and look at this guy.
Yeah.
Really?
And as a man, I mean, if we were going to battle together, how much would we trust each other with each other's lives? I mean, to me, it's that fundamental. But I come from a military background. I spent 14 years in the Canadian Navy. So for me, that whole idea of really having each other's back and that fraternity, that camaraderie and an important bond that men and warriors are able to connect with, that's what we have to take into the world with us, because that's our role as men, is to protect those things we care about.
But absolutely.
So another important concept is that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So anything about you that's half-assed tells everybody that meets you that you kind of do things half-assed in your life. So how do you dress? Do you take the time to care about small details? Do you take the time to care about the way your apartment looks, or how people feel when they're around you, or what kind of shoes you wear? All these tiny little superficial details are not important because they're superficial.
Right.
They're important because they say something about your personality and how you do everything in your life. I chose my job because there's so many women in my profession, right?
Yes,
so
mostly.
I'm sitting in a pub with a bunch of my colleagues, and we're talking about dating and what I should teach the guys. And one of my female colleagues says, okay, look at this table behind us. Bunch of nice-looking guys, average-looking guys. And she says, I would never date any of these guys. Well, why not? What the hell's wrong with them?
No meaning, just looked at them.
Instant disqualification. Harsh.
Very.
And I'm like, well, what's wrong with these guys? You don't even know them. You haven't talked to them. You know nothing about them. Nice guy. She says, look, he's wearing white socks. I'm like, yeah? Well, if he's wearing white socks, it means that he's got a low-level job and he lives in his mother's basement. He plays Nintendo all day, has no friends, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're getting all this from a pair of white socks? And all the other women sitting around the table, they're all nodding their heads going,
Wow.
So I'm thinking, okay, if women are disqualifying a table full of guys based on a pair of white socks, I mean, imagine what else they're picking up on.
Bigger stuff.
Who knows what they're picking up on?
Right.
But something about you is saying, okay,
Keying in.
if this is the way he runs this part of his life, this is the way he runs every part of his life. And either they love it, they're like, wow, if this is the way he runs this part of his life, then I want to be a part of that lifestyle. Or they're like, oh, I don't want to be a part of that lifestyle. So really, at the end of the day, part of the transformation, whether you start from the inside out, rebuilding yourself, your self-esteem, your confidence, and having that permeate out, or starting from the outside, working on your appearance, your first impressions, having a purpose in life, and making sure you transmit that in the first seconds you meet someone. Either way, it's a lifestyle architecture. You're rebuilding a lifestyle that's attractive and living the life you love and having that permeate through every interaction.
I like that. You talk about social networks.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. Because you even just talked about turning this friend zone into a good thing.
You know what? I gotta say,
I'm like, you're the first person I've heard when you say, let's just be friends. You're like, great.
if a woman says, let's just be friends, I am seriously excited about it, and I take her up on the offer. I'm like, you know what? I think you're an awesome person. That's why we're on this date, even though we're just gonna be friends. And to show you that I'm serious about this, I've got some great single male friends that I'd love to introduce you to. And I turn her into a great female friend. And then, of course, because I'm not like getting weird, I don't feel rejected or whatever, she's like, well, this guy's actually kind of cool. And so now she introduced me to her female friends. There's a couple of quick little steps that I think everybody should implement into their lives, whether you're social networking or not.
Okay.
But the first step is, before you even leave the house, remember, we're going to start with the end in mind. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're a high-quality person, because you want to attract high-quality people. So before you even leave the house, look at your lifestyle, look at your whole life, and ask yourself, is this a really engaging, and passionate life that I'm inviting people into. Be your best so you can attract your best. And once you've done that and you've really cleaned up your lifestyle, then, and only then, do you leave the house. Because if you don't do that, as soon as you leave the house to try to interact with somebody, they're going to get this feeling that there's something missing in your life and you want something from them. So if you don't want to come across as needing something, then you can't need anything. But if your life is really fulfilled and enriched, when you walk into a room and engage somebody in interaction, they really feel like you're just there to share something with them, to give them the pleasure of having known you for an hour or whatever. So that's the second step. Start with the end in mind. What's my purpose here? To make new friends. I'm not trying to pick this woman up. Not trying to number clothes or, I don't know, the fancy.
Throw all this cliche stuff right out the window.
Here's a human being that I'm trying to connect with, and this might be a potentially interesting new friend.
Right.
That's it. Period. That's my interaction. That's my intention. Living a life with intentionality is so key. Mm-hmm. In a year, there's 365 days that go by. And of those 365 days, if the average person thinks about it real hard, they can only remember about 20 of those days. So what if you start every day with an intention saying, you know what, today I'm going to create one of those days that I'm going to remember next year. This is going to be one of those 20 days that I'm going to remember. Or even better, this is going to be one of those days that I'm going to remember 20 years from now.
Right.
And I actually start building my day with that intention. So what can I do to enrich that day? Whenever somebody calls you to go out, be a yes man. If you're ever sitting at home alone on a Saturday night for whatever reason, it's because you've become a no man. I'm tired, it's too cold outside, blah, blah, blah. Whatever reason, yeah. You say no 2 or 3 times, you fall off people's social radar, they stop calling you.
It's true.
I'm a yes man. My phone rings, I'm like, I'm in. Like, do you just know what you volunteered for? I don't care, I'm in. Being a yes man creates that amazing momentum in your life where you're always being invited to fun things. You become what I call a social nexus, where you're a social center of gravity, where all these fun and exciting things are happening and all these fun and exciting people are always gravitating around. So all of a sudden people are calling you, what's the plan? What's going on? So that's the other thing. So be a yes man and be a social leader.
Right.
The next step is that once you meet people in a social context, you want to consolidate the friendship. So if I meet you at a table full of 20 people, then within the next 7 days, I need to call you and say, Mark, it was awesome to meet you the other day. You know what? It was really fun to talk to you about this, this, and this. By the way, that book that I was telling you about, here it is. I happen to know that this is something that's important to you. I take a minute out of my day. It was great to meet you. Here's that thing we were talking about. And they're like, wow, this guy actually considers me as a real human being.
Right. Well, You're thinking about me.
I'm thinking about
everyone loves to be thought about, for sure.
Exactly. And it could be a simple phone call. It could be a text message. It could be an email, whatever, just to keep the connection. Oh, and by the way, somewhere in there, before you left the table of 20 people, I made sure I got your contact info.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be creepy. It's like, you know what? It was great to meet you. I'd love to hang out with you sometime. Let's exchange contact info and stay in touch. Do you want me to repeat that line? Because guys are, racking their brains all the time trying to figure, well, how'd you get her number? It was great to meet you. I'd love to carry on this conversation. Let's exchange contact info. Here we go. It's so simple because you've done steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. You are your best, you're a really interesting person, you're not there to take anything, blah, blah, blah. You've done all the homework beforehand. You're giving in the interaction.
Right.
It's fun to be around you. You're creating moments that people are going to remember a year from now. You're living a life that you love, so you're passionate about what you do. You're fun, you're a leader, you're confident.
Right.
All this other stuff is being mixed in. So when you ask for somebody's contact info, it's not creepy or weird.
It's part of the
They're
exchange.
dying to include you in their network. So somewhere in the 7 days after meeting you, I have to have at least connected with you somehow. And then within the next 14 days, I have to meet you again in a different context. So what I love to do is, if I'm going to a party or if I'm going to an event, I'm inviting people to come with, always. And now it's the question of reciprocating, because you owe me a social favor now. I've given you something without wanting anything in return. I invite you to this great party, I invite you to come along, do this thing, introduce you to my circle. You owe me a social favor now.
Yep.
And so I'm banking up all these social favors, and people are going to reciprocate. So I'm always getting invited to great activities, great events. And I'm reciprocating as well. If you don't reciprocate a social favor, if somebody's introduced you to a female friend, and you connected, and you don't reciprocate by introducing him to somebody, you're what I call like a social parasite.
Right.
You're the one always getting invited to the parties, but you never throw your own parties, you never invite people, you're a parasite. And eventually people are just going to say, oh, wait a minute, this guy is a taker, he's not a giver. and eventually people cut you off. The last step, I guess, is just to follow up. Always just make sure that you keep that wheel turning. You can literally go, and I'm not kidding when I say this, you can go from having 0 friends today to throwing a party within a month or 2 and having 200 people showing up.
Really?
I'm not kidding when I say that. But it means going out and actually doing this. Do your homework.
Start with
Be your
yourself
best.
Right.
So you can attract the best. Make sure that you're always surrounding yourself with great, cool people. You're a social leader. You're taking initiatives. You've done all your inner work. You're living a life that you love, and you're making sure that you transmit that passion for your life in every interaction. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that?
Doc, thanks for being here in the men's room, man.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that you did come, even though you were a nurse, and you got invited by the big two to the men's room.
Step into the
Why don't you
bathroom with me.
Step into the stall with me.
At least you didn't invite me into the stall. Then I'd get
Well,
nervous.
that's the next episode.
All right, guys, let's take a look at our 5 takeaway points from Amir. Point number 1, good relationships can be the best part of your life. The let's just be friends speech can be the best thing you've ever heard because it allows you to integrate someone new into your social network and you get to meet their girlfriends. Point number 2, be conscious of your mental attitude in your interactions. Do your beliefs support your desires? In the first few seconds after meeting you, a woman is sampling what life with you would be like. So what are you putting out there? Point number 3, there are 3 important qualities that you want to show her. That you're a confident leader, you have a great sense of humor, and you're an authentic person. Point number 4, here are 2 great quotes to remember. Attraction has to walk through the door of admiration, and the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Point number 5, be a yes man. Create social momentum in your life by saying yes to everything. Become a social leader and always reciprocate your social favors by giving more than you get. And remember, there's no such thing as failures, only opportunities to learn. And in life, class is always in session. I'm Mark Sparks. We'll see you next time in the men's room.